Nevada, June 1938. I drove the stagecoach to the airport to pick up Nina. Back when Max and the Hollywood set designer had been shopping for frontier paraphernalia for the ranch, they'd stumbled onto it, rotting under a tarp in a shed over in Virginia City. Max bought the stagecoach on the spot, figuring it would be a smart promotional gimmick, the ideal vehicle for picking up ladies at the train. He got that creaky old gut juggler refurbished and painted a Pegasus on its doors. The winged horse, yes, jumping through a hoop of words that read, "The Flying Leap Dude Ranch." Max wanted to add a slogan, a line a Reno judge used every time he gavelled a woman from wife to divorcee. Better luck next time. But Margaret, always the voice of reason, put the kibosh on that. I don't know how much Max paid for our antediluvian taxi, but it was worth every penny. It was all but guaranteed a guest's face would light up when she realized the coach had come for her. You could see her thinking that her once upon a time might not be over and done with yet, if such a good-looking cowboy awaited her, ready to relieve her of her baggage and hand her inside that carriage. Max called that old rattletrap conveyance the Mix Master, because he swore an hour of being shaken half to death inside it could make friends of women with little in common, other than great wealth and marital distress. Friends, if not for life, at least for their stretch with us, which was what we cared about. The day Nina arrived, I'd shucked off my shirt while I hitched 4 of our 6 horses to the coach. My mother would have had the vapors if she'd caught me working shirtless any place where a lady might lay eyes on me. Max, however, instructed us to strip to the waist whenever we did chores, weather permitting. A little perk for the clientele. Honest labor and rippling muscles being 2 things our affluent ladies might not have seen very much of lately, or at all. But that afternoon was hotter than the hinges of hell, so I had no qualms about going around half naked. There was no one around to see, anyway, Sam having volunteered to drive all our other guests into town in the wood-paneled Chevrolet. Margaret was busy with the endless chores inside the house that came of taking care of the 8 ladies, give or take, we had in residence at any one time. Max had gone to the courthouse to stand witness for a departing guest, swearing on a Bible that Susie had not set foot outside Nevada for the past 6 weeks. As soon as the judge proclaimed Susie Nevada's newest legal resident and Reno's freshest grass widow, she'd board a train for her real home, Chicago. Emily, as it turned out, had stayed behind while the others went into town. She'd arrived at the ranch a few evenings earlier behind the wheel of a Pierce Arrow she'd driven solo, the 200 or so miles from San Francisco, sitting on top of a big square pillow to make her tall enough to see over the steering wheel without getting a crick in her neck. She'd pulled into the barnyard just before dusk, the top of her convertible lowered for the breeze, her uncovered hair whipped into a rat's nest. Darkness fell around 9 p.m. that time of year, so Emily's arrival had raised quite a ruckus among our guests, and also the chickens, both groups just starting to make noises about settling in for the night. By the time her luggage was unloaded and the cooling engine had stopped ticking, some of the poultry had roosted on the Pierce Arrow's windshield, and the barn cats were sharpening their claws on its upholstery. I shooed the critters off and put the sedan in an outbuilding next to the stagecoach, then covered it with the Mix Master's antique tarp. The other women congratulated Emily on her bravery for undertaking such an epic voyage alone. "Not brave," she said. "Desperate. If I hadn't left when I did, I wouldn't have left at all." She had the plummy accent of women who cycled through the Seven Sisters colleges back east, but her voice was surprisingly deep and gravelly for such a little thing. "My dear, your voice," one of our older ladies said. "You sound absolutely exhausted." "Oh, I always sound like this," Emily said. "I'm sure it was cute when I was 5 years old, but now—" She shrugged, and shook her head. Fingernails on a chalkboard, according to my darling husband anyway. But yes, I am very, very tired.